Good morning, this is Dave White. I'm the VP of Textiles for Loom. Want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. Early this year, Suzanne Tick, our creative director for Loom Textiles, took a trip to India for 3 months to do a deep dive into Vedic meditation. Her trip was to India. It obviously, I'm sure, was an amazing trip. And here this morning, Suzanne's going to share her experiences with you and some of the things that she learned from her 3 months in India. So with that, Suzanne, welcome.
Thanks, Dave. Hey, I feel blessed that you guys let me go on this trip. Actually, my clients were like so kind of like eager to learn and allow me to take 3 months off, the first time in my whatever 30, 40 years of working in this industry. And what we talked about when we started this discussion of the talk series on Vedic meditation was what I could share with you. I've shared my textiles and my floor covering and my glass with you all for so many years, and I haven't been this interested in anything since I learned how to weave. And once I started this practice, this meditation technique, it became very, very aware. I became aware of how important it is to share this. And so I took this deep dive. It was a 3-month course on initiator training on how to initiate people. It's the hardest thing that I've ever done in my entire life. And I just wanted to share it with you and see what y'all think. And so if you have questions, type in questions as they pop up and bubble up. That's what this is really about. And at the end, we'll answer questions. And because we're going to be doing this the third Tuesday every month for 4 months, we don't get to your question, we'll answer it next month. And or if you want to reach out to me, you can always do that, and I can answer the questions and stuff like that. So I'm just so excited to share this with you. And it's kind of the first time I'm like really kind of talking. It is the first time I'm talking out loud about it. And so I'm a little bit nervous. I have a little bit to read here and there, but so the first slide is really indicative of where I live and work in New York City. It's the heart of the East Village, and about 4 years ago, I had yet another restless night of not sleeping. People that have worked with me, Dave is one of them, knows that I'm like up all night worrying about this or that, or how did this product test, or all of these things that would just pop into my mind. And I had endless worries, and I couldn't, I was exhausted by the time I get up in the morning, and I work 18 to 20 hours a day, and traveling every week, and developing product, which I love, and I'm very enthusiastic about my work. But I was totally stressed out and exhausted all the time. And my 28-year-old son would come home and he'd be like, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I don't know what's wrong with me, but something feels wrong with me." So living and working in the same space for the past 20-something years, while it looks like fantastic on the outside, on the inside, I just couldn't get away from it. And I know when I go and talk to designers and architects in the industry, even though you're not living in your space right now, you guys are living in your space, and you're trying to work, and you're cooking dinner, and you're having Zoom calls, and you're doing all of this. And this is kind of second nature for me, but it's exhausting. And so what happened is this: even if I lived elsewhere, and I would still have these worrisome thoughts. And so this is kind of my elsewhere, and this is where I am now on Fire Island. And I was 4 years ago, I was taking a beach walk with a friend that had come out to visit, and he said, "You know, this is just incredible. How happy does this make you?" And I was stunned by the question, because I was like, happy? Like, what does that mean? What does happy even look like? I could feel some sense of happiness occasionally, and I was always excited when we launched our product. I've always hidden behind my product and my work, and what makes me happy when I cook a good meal and please others, that makes me happy, all of those things. But I said, what do you mean, like happy? What's happy? And he's like, you need to start meditating, girl. Like, and I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, what are you saying? And I said, I tried. I can't meditate. I think too much. I'm like, and he's like, no, this is a technique that you should try. And I'm like, I'm all ears. I'll do anything at this point. Like, you tell me. So he introduced me to a woman from the UK named Melanie Kirkbride, and she happened to be in town, and he goes, come to one of her talks, and she's going to give a talk about Vedic meditation. And I'm like, well, what's Vedic? What's that about? What's Vedic mean? What is that? And Vedic in Sanskrit means knowledge. And so it's all about knowledge and gaining knowledge and how your mind works and how consciousness works and all of this stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, I've been through a lot of different techniques of meditation, and I've never been able to keep the practice. And then my friend said, but Suzanne, Tom Knowles is the teacher and is Melanie's teacher. And what Tom described as meditation, this technique, is it's 5 times more restful than sleep. And I'm like all ears. I'm like, oh my God. So how does that work? And the whole concept of meditation is, as you unstress, you're unstressing at a molecular level. And so your cells, then when you were born, stress was entering your body at a very molecular level, and that stress stays in your body for a lifetime, unless you start learning how to unstress. And so once they were talking about this whole molecular level of things, it was like, oh, I like that, because in the office, we talk about how we construct our textiles from a molecular level. Like, this shows, like, we develop all these yarns from a molecular level, and we develop them so that we can have additive dye stuffs in there so that it could prevent staining from penetrating into the fibers. And we do all of that. And I was like, how could this be? Like, I'm working on textiles at a molecular level, and now this guy's talking to me about, how meditation can help you from a molecular level. So what does meditation do to us? Like, it not only releases stress, but it makes us more conscious. And you hear this stuff, what does conscious mean? What does it look like? How does it feel? But what that does, when you become more conscious, you become much more aware. And once you become much more aware, then anything that's not sustainable, that's unsustainable in your life, whether it's a product that is starting to fail, or whether it's a job, or whether it's a relationship, whatever it is, once you learn how to meditate, it'll be really hard to sustain anything that's unsustainable. So that's just a fair warning, because it's so true, because the more conscious you become, the more aware you become of everything around you. So after about 6 months of meditation, I talked to my teacher and I said, have you ever done this on a corporate level? Have you worked with a company before? I'd love to see if my team would like to meditate together. But I don't want to be the one that, I'm already the boss, and, they're coming to my house, and do you think it would be good? So they sat down and talked to my team. So I was thrilled that the majority of my team members wanted to learn to meditate. So the way it works is this: you have an intro talk, and this is how it worked for me. And this is kind of a little kind of teaser of that intro talk. And so after the talk, I thought, oh, this molecular level talk and all of this stuff, I'm kind of a little bit skeptical. And I was like, is this too good to be true? Is this a real thing or what? So the second thought was, you know, I've been looking for something like this my whole life. I hope I don't get disappointed. Like, you know, then I'm worrying about, if I do this, am I going to get disappointed by it? Like, what does that mean? So at the minimum, what happens is you sign up, you have a beautiful little ceremony like what's on the picture here. It's called a puja ceremony. And then for 4 days, you take a course. And in those 4 days, you actually learn how to meditate. And then you have a teacher. And in this case, you would have me if you wanted to ever do that. I'm not like, I'm only telling you this because it has been the most special thing that's happened in my life, and in a long time since I learned how to weave. So by 6 months, I was feeling like enormously better. I was sleeping better. My anxiety had lifted. I always say to Dave, do you remember how like anxious I used to be, and now I'm not so anxious anymore? And he just kind of looks at me and he's like, yeah, that's right, Suzanne. But I do feel that at one point I did wake up one morning and I called my teacher and I was like, because I woke up and I'm like, I feel so good. I feel like happy. What is this? And I called her and I said, can this make you happy? Like ultimately happy? This whole happy thing came up. And she's like, yeah, Suzanne, on the second day we talked about that. And then I thought, you know, on the second day of her talk, I remember her saying that it can bring you bliss, or it can bring you this feeling of pure consciousness. And I actually didn't really know what that meant at the time, and I just kind of discarded it. And all of a sudden I was feeling that. And so that became an awareness for me that I thought I need to take this as far as I can go. So there's tons of lectures you can listen to. The Vedic Worldview is a podcast that Tom Knowles gives. So if you're interested in that, it talks about the fundamentals. And the fundamentals of meditation is a very sequential direction on how to train your mind and your body to unstress. And those fundamentals are very, very similar uniquely to our industry and how we build materials, how we design, how we think about programming. And so the structure of meditation is very similar to the fundamentals of how we develop our products. And you know, I like to say that weaving was one of the you know, the oldest occupations around. And then I come to learn that meditation has been around for 5,000 years. It was cognized in the United States 70 years ago. So this is one of the oldest professions, neck and neck with our weaving practice. So that's kind of fun to think about. But Tom, if you go on the Vedic Worldview, you can learn more about meditation. He worked and lived with the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who was he was the guy that had the ashram where the Beatles were. So there's a ton of stories about that it's quite interesting. But it's something that I feel really, really passionate about, and I wanted to share with you. And I'll continue to talk about it and get deeper into this as we move through for the next 3 or 4 months on how this works. And I think we're at 11:15. I have so much more to say, and I think I'm running out of time. Daniela, do we have questions, or should I continue to talk a little bit?
Suzanne, you can continue. There's no questions at the moment. Okay.
So the mechanics of Vedic meditation, I'll just give it 3 or 4 more minutes, is that you can Google meditation and go wherever that leads you. And there's all different types. And what's most important is there are different ways to look at this. And there's contemplation meditation, and that's where there's a meaning of something, and you concentrate on that meaning, and There's concentration meditation, that's a visualization technique, and you concentrate. Both of those require effort. And with Vedic meditation, it's neither concentration or contemplation, it's more transcending. And what that means, it takes you a step beyond, and it takes you to that place where you're not thinking, and it's a place where you're fully conscious. And by emptying the mind of thoughts and content, you arrive at a place of that's called being, and that's really the place where you want to be, and the benefits that go along with that are huge. So so that's what I learned from the beginning. So I'm giving you a little glimpse of the technique, which starts if you're interested. With that little ceremony that I talked about, and the puja ceremony, which is what this picture is about. And next month, what we'll talk about is how unstressing works and through the meditation process. So if you're interested, tune in on June 16th. And if you have any questions, give me a call or email me or text me or whatever. And thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Suzanne. That was a good teaser. I like that.
Dave, you have any questions?
Suzanne, can you please repeat the podcast and the teacher's name?
The name is Vedic Worldview, and the teacher's name is Tom Knowles. It's THOMKNOLES. And Tom, he's in his 70s, I'd say. I know that he's in his 70s. And he is the only ordained Maharishi in the West that practices and teaches this technique in the exact same format that it was cognized by the Maharishi Maheshi Yogi. And it's interesting being in India with him, and the Indians that are there, that are around us, that hear us and the teachings that we give, they're like, oh my gosh, we're getting more training than they are, unfortunately, at this time. And there's such a need at this time right now for meditation. And again, it's like if 1% of us learned how to meditate and got to that place of bliss, we would be a whole different world today. So we're going for 1%. 1% of you people out there, you want to learn how to meditate, this is the way to do it. So,
Suzanne, is this type of meditation the same as transcendental meditation? I may have pronounced that incorrectly.
Yeah, Tom was one of the beginning founders of bringing with the Mahesh Yogi to the country, and they became the separation between that movement and the Vedic meditation movement happened about within the last 8 to 10 years. And the reasoning is that Tom wanted to continue to teach in the exact same format that the Maharishi had intended it to be, with a teacher-student, instructor-student concept rather than an online app, and which is the way that movement is growing. So it is it's a mantra-based meditation that you would get a mantra, but that's all done in person rather than over the internet or over the phone. So it's a more personal approach to it. And Tom wanted to continue in the format in which it was intended. Good question.
Are there any similarities to Shambhala meditation?
I actually don't know. I will look at Shambhala. I definitely have heard about that, but I don't know that technique. But I will answer that and have a complete answer for you for next month on that. I'm not sure about Shambhala. There's so many techniques. And some of them are good. I mean, you just have to see what feels right to you. This technique is 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the afternoon or early evening before you eat dinner. And it's, like I said, it's a mantra-based. You get your own mantra, and that's based on your timetable and life, where you are in your life, and it's also based on your body type, and it's like a shoe size. It fits you, and you use that. It's a Sanskrit word. It has no meaning. It has a vibrational quality, and that's what's so fascinating, and it takes you in, and that's what allows you to get to that transcendence, that transcendent place, which is where we all kind of want to be.
Great.
Great.
There are no further questions at this time, Suzanne.
Okay. Thank you for the questions. I love the questions. That's what makes a teacher, when you have questions.
Great. Well, thank you, Suzanne, and thanks to everyone for joining us today. We look forward to our next TikTok discussion on June the 16th.
Thank you very much for attending. Okay. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.